So welcome to this week's welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with RokoM and Michele. I think what happens is I just start running and my tongue gets in the way of something. And maybe that's what this is. So this week's episode is on the power of taking the first step. And so I am going to read a quote, and I have a new process. I'm going to pull this over so that I can just look at it. I don't have to write it down. So this one, there's a number of them as there tend to be with certain topics. So this one is the first step toward getting somewhere is decide that you're not going to stay where you are. And so I think it speaks, Roko, to your idea of intent. I mean, one of your favorite things about intentionality. But part of it is to decide that where I'm at today is not the place that I'm going to be, or the performance that I'm doing is not what I'm going to do. But that's the first step, is to have some intentionality, commitment to doing it. And then there's steps that you have to take, right? Because there's the thinking and the planning and the deciding I'm not going to be here. And then you're like, oh, crap, this feels kind of comfortable. So maybe I don't want to do that. But there's power in that. And then there's power in taking the first step. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I love this topic. I'm so glad that you brought it forward. And I have so many thoughts, so I'll try my best not to take us off into crazy at things. But the thing that came to mind when you first brought this up was probably for about 10 years, I went back and forth about getting my master's degree. Mm-hmm. And literally a decade went by with me just waffling back and forth. Well, am I really going to get the value out of it? Do I need it? Oh, but I really want it because I just love learning. Oh my God, me going back to school as an older adult, all the kids are going to be younger, can I study and work at the same time? I just went back and forth. And then finally, not realizing COVID was going to hit, in January, I logged on to an online university, filled out the application, and submitted it. And by the end of February, I was enrolled in a master program, finished it in a year, and it was the best experience ever. I didn't know what the end was. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was going to take me 2 years or a year, but I had a plan in my mind. Try and get it done in a year. And I got really close. I think it was a year and a couple months, but,
which is impressive, by the way.
To your point though, I just had to do it. I just had to take the first step and do it and decide that I wasn't going to continue to stay in this back and forth mindset. I was just going to go forward and whatever come my way, just do it.
So this other quote that I just have to say right now, and then I want to comment on what you said because my brain started thinking about all this other stuff. So this one is Martin Luther King Jr. And it said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Mm-hmm. And so that's for you, right? Is that you didn't see the whole staircase. You didn't know exactly what the time frame was. And freaking impressive that you got it done in a year and a month, because it took me 2 years for my master's. And it was insane. I mean, because you're working full time, you've got this thing at night. And the sense of accomplishment that you have at the end of it is for me, it was incredible. It's like the pride, the accomplishment, all that stuff. And because at some point I knew I had to have letters. Other people have letters. I had to have letters, right? And so that was my driving thing around the master's. And I will tell you, other people have come since and said, now PhD's next. I said, no, I don't need a doctorate.
I know I keep getting I keep getting those emails, but here's what I'll say is 2 things. One is it's scary taking that first step. And I think for that decade that I was going back and forth, I was letting my fear get in the way. And at the point that I took the step, it was the decision to be vulnerable, to say, okay, I may be the oldest one in the class, or I may not be able to get through this, but I'm just gonna do it and try and see what happens. So it was was those two things that for me made a difference. And it was also, well, now that there's a third thing, apologies. It was that decision of not accepting status quo. And I know as process improvement folks, we always talk about this. You always have to be challenging yourself to not get comfortable with status quo. And I really felt like I was losing my edge in my workplace because I didn't have that additional learning. And so for me, it was the acceptance that I was going to challenge my status quo. I was going to put myself out there, be vulnerable, and learn something new. It's
interesting. I'll go back to the quote, is a decision to not be where you're at, right? That, and taking that first step. For me, it's like when something interests me initially, it's like, I want to learn more about that, or I want to do this, or I'm interested in this. That means launching into self-employment, starting my own business. It wasn't this long-term plan. I mean, it's not like I thought about it forever, went back and forth. It was like, okay, yeah. And for me, if we're doing the thing that we should be doing, if we're doing the path, walking the path that we should be walking, those doors open. There's not a lot of resistance to stuff. And I think the resistance to what your point is, that in the stuff that we should be doing comes from inside us. We put those barriers up. We put the fear, we put all the limiting beliefs that we may have. And the thing is it's always on your mind, right? And it's the equivalent, I think, of like a honey-do list, right? It's this thing that you never let go of. It's always there all the time. And believe it or not, that stuff that's on, I need to do this, this, and this, and that stuff, that ages us, because those are stressors.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, just try it out. Yeah. If you're going to, whatever it may be, experiment. We've talked about that before. It's like, just dip your toe in the water.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that can happen?
Right. Yeah. Be vulnerable. I mean, absent something that could create a safety risk for you, just do it.
Yeah. Don't go skydiving without someone else with you if you've never done it before, because you've just thought about it. No, that's not the first step to take without support and help. Yeah. There's another quote that I want to, it's around that same thing, because when you talk about fears and everything else, and it says, if you have the courage to begin, then you have the courage to succeed. And so that beginning is that first step. And it doesn't mean, I've heard people go, burn the boats, and you're going to go, don't burn the boats. Okay. You don't need to burn the boats. Dip your toe in the water, take a step, whatever that may be. If it's a shot at a career jump that, you're afraid to do it and put your name out there because maybe you don't feel you're totally qualified. You have some of the experience on all, and whatever that may be, try. Yeah. Because the reality of it is the majority of us are not qualified for that next career move until we get in that career place, because a lot of times the job description doesn't really match the job. Okay. So just give it a shot if it's something that you've got passion around and it interests you. So yeah, there's power in not staying still. Yeah. And not staying where you're at, unless for some reason that's truly at the heart of who you are, where you want to be, and you've arrived and you're totally okay, because that's fine too. But if there's an interest to do something else, I mean, and that's the power, because it starts with the intention. So decide that you're not where you are, and then actually physically doing something to start moving toward that thing. Yeah.
I think for leaders, excuse me, I think for leaders, the environment, your people, things are changing all around you. And it can be scary. So if there are things that are happening around you that are requiring you to do something different, take that first step, be vulnerable, go in with that open mind of, I'm going to learn something along the way. Even if I stumble, after taking that first step, I'm going to learn something along the way. You can't go wrong.
What just flashed in my head? And I sent this.
No, because I am not a mind reader.
Oh my God.
A lot of things, Michelle, but I'm not a mind reader.
You could be. Do you remember the YouTube video on the lone nut, the leader on the hill?
Yes.
That's what flashed in my head.
Dancing man.
Yes. So I sent that to my daughter, right? Because I had described it to her and she goes, "Oh, Mom, I love this." And I shared it with other people. But that's the power in taking the first step. So what happens, the leader, who's the crazy guy, and I think the follower was the first step guy, right? Because the leader's just doing his own thing. He's not really worried about anything else. And if you haven't seen that video, go find it on YouTube. It's hilarious. But it's the first follower that goes in there because he's like sitting back probably thinking, well, he looks like an idiot, but he looks like he's having fun. So yeah, I'm going to go with it.
All join in.
All of a sudden the hordes of people start coming. So I think that's the power too, is as a leader, we're role modeling things.
Yeah.
So role model what, courage looks like, and role model what vulnerability looks like, and role model what faith and confidence in yourself looks like by taking that first step and doing something different or the same or continuing on. Yeah. But that's what came to mind for me as the lone nut. So
I love where you took that. That was awesome. Yeah. That's a great
step. So thank you for this. So what are one or two things you want people to walk away with?
Well, you just blew my mind with the lone dancer.
I forgot about that. The lone nut on a hill. If you're without a follower, you're just a lone nut on a hill.
Yeah. I just say be vulnerable. Just do it. Take a chance on yourself. Believe in yourself. Take that first step.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, and I'm going to go back to the first quote, is identify, and this goes back to a previous podcast on clarity, identify first that you want something different, something new, something different, that where you are today is not where you want to be tomorrow. And then figure out, you don't have to see the whole staircase, right?
Yeah.
Figure out what the next step is, because this is what we do in coaching, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to map out all the steps, but figure out that the next one is that you need to take. And it could be gathering more information. And then what's the next step after that? So I think that's it. It's not about the whole plan. Don't get stuck in what is it? Analysis paralysis. Don't get stuck in that. But figure out if you want to do something different, if you don't want to be where you're at, and I'm not talking about major career changes. And then what is that first step? What is that first step?
Yeah. It's your favorite saying. What does a little bit better look like?
I can't help it. Thank you, Margie Hagany, for that. So this has been Leadership Soundbites, RokoM, Michele. Please like, share, subscribe. Look forward to topics. Till next time, as always, I love chatting with you. Yes. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.